on October 17th.
I'm an angel. See the wings?
Don't miss the new comedy Good Fortune, starring Seth Rogen, Aziz Ansari, and Keanu Reeves. Critics rave. It's Heaven Sent.
Let me have a budget, guardian angel?
Kinda. You were very unhelpful.
Good Fortune, directed by Aziz Ansari, rated R.
Finally in your wellness era? Then you know gut health is gut wealth. And with 20 years of science behind it, Activia can help keep those good gut vibes going. Deliciously smooth and creamy, Activia probiotic yogurts and dailies have billions of live and active probiotics and help support gut health while you go about your day. Your gut is where it all begins, so start with Activia. Enjoying Activia twice a day for 2 weeks as part of a balanced diet and healthy lifestyle can help reduce the frequency of minor digestive discomfort.
Unfiltered discussions, unexpected guests. No topic is off limits, from sex and relationships to the human condition, personal anxieties, and so much more. The only talk show of its kind in the world. This is The Last Show with David Cooper.
Hi, welcome in. It's The Last Show. I'm David. We got a lot of fun stuff planned for you tonight, and if you tune into the program, here's some of the stuff you'll learn. What if your final resting place could actually help the planet? Halfway through the hour, we'll be talking about mushroom coffins. Yes, mushroom, fungus. It's kind of a wild idea, and when it germinates, see what I did there? Germinates because mushrooms. When they're used, they turn something dead into new life. Then after that, we'll continue our exploration in passing on, but instead of coffins, we'll look at 38 million obituaries to reveal what we truly value in a person's life. And spoiler, it's rarely the professional power and money you earned, and more to do with benevolence, family, tradition. So what did a computer analysis of that many obituaries reveal? We'll cover that towards the end of the hour. Now, that is just some of what we'll cover on the show. There will be more. You will learn more, but for now, let's dive in.
Want to be part of The Last Show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
We've all heard about icebergs. I'm sure you saw that documentary called The Titanic, but have you heard about fatbergs? Bergs of fat. And I'm not talking about someone with the last name Berg who is overweight. We are joined by foreign correspondent Tony Five in England, and they are struggling right now with fatbergs. Tony, welcome to the program.
David, live from my bedroom here in London. It's amazing, David. This is one of the cutting-edge reports that I wanted to bring to you and the listeners. Yes, here in London, we have Victorian sewer system, my friend. So it's obviously pre-war, pre-everything, basically, about the dinosaur era. I'm not very good at history, but around that sort of time. And we have under about 10 feet under our roads, a very ancient sewer system that gets blocked up constantly, and the local authority, the Thames Authority, Water Authority, have just taken out 100-ton fatberg. So this is basically a mass of congealed waste, I'm guessing, but not waste like you would think about.
Don't pour cooking oil down the drain, I think is the main takeaway.
No, it's not that. What do you think this thing is made of the most? Come on, let's you spend a lot of time in the toilet, my friend. What do you think is the most, what is it made of? What's the constituent?
I think when British people say they're going to see Big Ben, they're taking Big Bens and it's clogging up the sewer system, no?
Not at all. It's wet wipes.
Wet wipes? You're not supposed to flush those.
Yep, so it's wet wipes. Dude, they had a fatberg that came out which weighed as much as 8 double-decker buses. So essentially, that's like 8 train carriages on one of or a Greyhound bus, I guess you would have in there. 8 Greyhound buses, 100 tons, and it's basically consumed of obviously wet wipes by grease, oil, fat, so on. Not sort of fecal matter or anything like that. That's obviously something different. But it's such an operation. This thing costs £18 million a year. This is unbelievable.
Like to clean it up and make sure it doesn't clog things?
Yeah, because it's all under the River Thames and there's various sort of curves and stuff and it all just gets backed up. and it's like part of the Port of London Authority. It's a huge operation. I mean, it really is a huge operation, so much so that they've called it a Fatberg, and it can turn into an emergency because obviously it blocks up. And as Newton said, what goes down must come out. So at some stage, it's going to back itself up and fall out.
I think that's right. So basically, like wet naps together with any kind of oil, which you shouldn't be pouring down the drain, like cooking oil, any kind of oil, like fats. They create this iceberg of fat, and it clogs the drain.
But it's huge. If you were to see one, it just looks terrifying. I mean, I wouldn't want to be on a Titanic if it hit a Fatberg, but I was completely blown away by £18 million. What's that in dollars? That's like $7 million or $10 million
something like that.
Ridiculous. It's crazy.
I'm looking at photos of like a barge, pretty much like basically those dumpsters that you have outside of people's houses when they renovate, but it's filled with this blob, and it looks like Slimer from Ghostbusters.
Yes, but one of the like the sort of bullet points that they said, and I like the way they described these. That's what makes me laugh more. Some of the blockages in the sewers can weigh as much as 25 elephants, David. 25 elephants of Fatbergs. Brilliant. Happy days.
Wait, 8 double-decker buses weighs as much as 25 elephants?
No, this was a soundbite from somebody else saying that they can weigh as much as 25 elephants. This one here that we've got at the moment, this current Fatberg, is 10 double-decker buses, yeah.
Thank you for doing the important reporting of breaking down how much the Fatbergs weigh.
You know, I used to measure people in Subway sandwiches. Did you ever do that?
No. I was never a fan of Subway, unless they're a sponsor of this show, in which case I love it. It's my favorite sandwich.
No, but do you ever measure somebody in certain things? So, like, sorry, I know I'm going off-piste at the moment, but if I used to see someone, I'd say that's about 7 Subway sandwiches, or she's about 4 Subway sandwiches.
Isn't a Subway sandwich a foot? So, like, I would be 5.5?
Yeah, about that, yeah. But I never used to know, because obviously we don't use the imperial system here in the UK. It's all metrics. So it used to confuse a lot of people that I described them in sandwiches.
I grew up on metric, but in Canada, for whatever reason, growing up, we just gave people height in feet and inches, but every other height was in centimeters or meters or whatever. So I'm well versed in But the one thing that gets me about British measurements, stone. What the heck is a stone?
Nobody knows. Has it come from a stone? Like, I know I am 11 stone something, right? But I don't know what a stone is. Is there one massive stone that somebody weighed? What happened to kilograms? Because obviously the SI limits are like kilograms and grams, but I have no idea where stone came from. I feel sometimes the English just do stuff just to mess with the rest of the world, don't you?
I think that's exactly right. It's 14 pounds. But then do you do like, I'm 4.1 stone? Do you do I'm 4.5 stone? Like your increments are so rough. Like 1 stone is a lot of weight.
Yeah, so it's like 11 stone 4, but I don't know what the 4 is. Is that 11 stone 4 inches?
Nobody understands it, not even the king.
No, and he doesn't need to be weighed anyway, bless him. He's weighed in gold, to be fair.
Let's go to our next story here. You sent me something about a modeling scam, and you said you've actually had a friend fall victim to something like this. Basically, you get scouted for a modeling agency. This happened to someone in Manchester. She was 79 years old. No offense to her, but when they scout models, they're usually 19 years old, not 79, but whatever. And then, of course, it's like, okay, you're scouted to be a model. You just have to pay a little bit of money, and then we'll start paying you or something like that.
It's a tried and tested con trick. And I've grown up and he's been in London, home of the Artful Dodger. These are kind of the non-violent crimes that occur every day, like your pickpocketing, like your 3-card Monty. I'm a big fan of these because it really delves into the human psyche. So what they do is these guys, mainly guys or girls, they target people based on their vanity. So they'll go out of shops and say, oh my God, you look amazing. I'd love you to be a model in the older generation category, or the person that sort of models next to garbage trucks, which is what happened to me. And what they do is they force all these wonderful compliments on you, and they say, we can take some professional photos. Usually it's sort of in a weird abandoned warehouse. They're the most awful pictures taken on the most basic digital camera, and then they send you a couple of these prints, which they look all right. You look okay-ish, and then they say for $1,000 or £500, we can put together a portfolio. We can put you out there, and you're going to be on Vogue. And a lot of people fall for it, even though they've never done any modelling. They've worked in Walmart all their life, and then all of a sudden they're going to be a catwalk model in Paris. But it happens, and this poor woman, her name's Judy Coker from Manchester, she's in BBC News. Basically, she lost £500 to being a model.
Which is about 100 stone or whatever. See what I did there?
About 150 feet, yeah. She did that, and it's just something that I thought it's something that will never go with technology. AI can't match it. I think it's fantastic that there are people who do that.
All right, well, we're here with Tony 5. I guess if you get scouted to be a model and they don't make you pay money, maybe it's real, but if you just have to pay $1,000 to get that portfolio out there, you might want to look into these people who are telling you you can be a model. No one's ever going to tell me I'm going to be a model, seriously. Tony 5 will join us after the break as we do advice for our tomorrow's self from yesterday today. If you have any advice that you would like to give yourself in the future, give us a call. The phone number coming up right now.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
ABC Wednesdays. Shifting Gears is back.
He has arisen.
Tim Allen and Kat Dennings return in television's #1 new comedy.
What?
With a star-studded premiere including Jenna Elfman, Nancy Travis, and...
Hey, buddy.
a big home improvement reunion.
Welcome.
Oh, boy.
That guy's a tool.
Shifting Gears. New Wednesdays, 8/7 Central on ABC. And stream on Hulu.
Advice for your tomorrow self from yesterday, or maybe from today for tomorrow. If you're confused, you're not alone. This is what happens on The Last Show with David Cooper and Tony 5.
It's advice from your yesterday's self for your tomorrow's today. Today, we play that here with Tony 5. It's a very simple thing we do every now and again. We record some advice in the past, and we play it in the future, but that future is today. Tony, welcome back to the show.
David, always like we say, it's theme music first, then theme, and then content.
Absolutely. I mean, the whole reason we do this is because the theme music for it is so amazing. Bow, meow, meow.
Exactly. How are you, my friend? Yes, the advice I provided yesterday for today, which I would record yesterday for tomorrow, but obviously you play today, that would be done for yesterday. It's all very straightforward, David. I really don't understand why we get such fan mail saying they don't understand it.
Yeah, like we open up emails and they say, we hate you, get off the radio. And we're thinking to ourselves, how can you not understand how this system works? How can you not understand how this segment works?
My mum shouldn't be allowed on email anymore, David. You know that.
There's a court order saying she's not allowed to send emails, but we're not allowed to discuss it. No. How was your day today? What did you get up to?
So I actually did something really strange. A neighbour of mine who's got a very severely autistic son, she was going to be late from work and asked me if I could sort of babysit him. He's 7 and he's non-verbal, and he'd just come back from school. He gets like an ambulance that brings him back, and I spent like an hour with him, and it was like the most surreal experience because he's completely non-verbal, doesn't make eye contact, but a very gentle soul, and I just sat with him and we were watching TV, and it was just that connection. Like I just had to put my hand down on the sofa and he puts his hand on mine and he was calm, and they were very worried because he has meltdowns sometimes, and I was very patient with him. And I think it's going to really fall into my advice for tomorrow. It's really apt because it was just about how you never know what's going on in people's lives, and having this son must be such a huge responsibility, and so difficult because there's no feedback, right? There's no feedback for what he likes, what he doesn't like. He can have these severe meltdowns and hurt himself, and he's a beautiful child. And I just sat there in this house, and it's full of sensory things. There's all these sort of colours and stuff in the house, all for him. Like the family have really made this all for him, and he's only 7. And I was sat there thinking, God, what's going to happen in 10 years and 20 years and 30 years? And and it relates to my advice that I gave because I wasn't having a good day. But go ahead and play it and we can talk about it.
Okay, well, we can add this to your list of credentials, Tony. Foreign correspondent and has a calming effect on children. This is a new thing I didn't know you had.
No, it's good. I don't always scream at people. But weirdly, he kept sort of rubbing my head. And I think he thought I was some sort of chocolate peanut because I've got a very shiny bald head. And he just kept, and it was really soothing for him. And I thought, and he was humming, and he can't, and I texted his mum saying he's doing this. He goes, oh, yeah, he likes sort of soft, soft round features. I said, well, that's my head. And he said, yeah, he must just like that. So yeah, lovely Harley.
Well, here is Tony 5, the Chocolate Peanuts advice from yesterday to be played today, which is tomorrow from yesterday's perspective.
Hello, dear boy. It's Tony 5, live from my kitchen. So my advice for tomorrow that I'm sending today, which was yesterday to you, but tomorrow for me, which would be yesterday for most people, but tomorrow, which would be any day really when it's on playback on a podcast. Do we have a podcast? We should have a podcast. If we don't have a podcast, let's get a podcast. Is that some days when it doesn't go your way, just to remember, Tony, it's only a day. The next day may be better. So that's my advice for tomorrow, for today, for tomorrow. All right. Cheers, mate.
Well, interesting. Yesterday you were having a rough day. Are you having a rough day again today?
I was up until the point where I babysat Harley. And that was a surreal thing. I think it's very easy to get engrossed in yourself, right? And be very selfish and be very, wallowing in your own misery. And when I spent time with him, I couldn't do that. I had to have all my focus on him. And how can I be miserable when I'm with a child who can't express himself and, has the very simple things that just light, colour, sound, and has reaction to that. And it changed my perspective. And I thought to myself, that ability to sit there and just listen to mindless music is very similar to what our listeners are going through most days when we're on. And it's
because the radios are broken and they can't change the dial.
So yeah, it was very calming. It was very soothing. And the parents came back and they go, I can't believe he's not had a meltdown. He'd usually sort of be running around. And said, no, he just sat on the sofa and we watched game shows together. And yeah, it was really eye-opening for me. And it also made me appreciate that not everybody has this perfect family that you see on TVs with 2.4 children and and everything going back and what there are some people who have very difficult family lives and home lives and you'll never hear about them really unless you're part of it.
Yeah, but I want to zoom back to the bad day, hoping that the next day will be better or taking a deep breath knowing that a good day will come. How quickly we lose our imagination for what a good day looks like when we're having a bad day.
Absolutely.
And we do it on a deep level when we're depressed. Like you could be depressed for months and think, oh, I'll never be better again, even though you've been better in the past. Or it happens on the mini level where you're just having a rough day and you lose your imagination for what tomorrow will look like when things improve. So the next time you're having a rough day, just remember, I've had that feeling before and it'll pass. I've given you this advice in 100 different ways, but it comes up again today.
You've given it to me. I've lost count of how many times. And as much as I can understand it, when you're in that bad day, it does feel so visceral. You're never going to have a good day again. This is it. It's going to be like this forever.
But you can remind yourself you felt that way before.
Yeah, I can, but it's this sort of self-fulfilling loop of misery, I guess, which sounds like a really bad ride at Disneyland. But I guess it's kind of like I would really just like to maybe appreciate the good days. Like now I'm sitting here, I'm talking to you, the listeners are listening, and I'm thinking about like what a wonderful, it was only 45 minutes, but it really had an impact on my day. It's made me feel good. I feel better. I've come into this thinking, okay, this is great. I've still got to look at your face, but everything's okay. And yeah, I think it's just maybe stepping back, having a breath and, dealing with the little things,
Well, if we have to go on the negative loop of misery ride at Disney World, it might sing a song something like this. It's a bad, bad world. It'll never be good again.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, here's my advice that I taped yesterday. It's nothing as profound as yours, but it's oddly similar.
Hi, David. It's advice from your yesterday's self for tomorrow, today, or something like that. Here is your advice. It's not don't chew gum while recording these things. You just spoke with a friend who is stressed about not doing more to help in the world, and you gave them the advice, don't stress about what you haven't done yesterday. Stress about what you can do tomorrow. And I think that's a nice message, right? Like, you can't change the past. Why fixate on it? But you can focus on the good you can do today and tomorrow. And because this involves dates and today's and tomorrow's, I thought it'd be good advice for your yesterday self for today from tomorrow.
Well, that is very profound, Dave. You're like Confucius or Buddha, and I've seen you naked, so you kind of look like Buddha as well. That is amazing advice. Have you heard that before, or did you just...
You've never heard that? Like you can't change the past, you don't fixate on it, focus on what good you can do tomorrow?
No, I don't really read Peanuts comics, but I guess it's very similar. But yeah, that's really good advice. What did your friend want to do when he said he hasn't done much in the world, or she hasn't done much in the world?
Why do you think it's a he? I'm not allowed to be friends with women now, Tony?
Not at all. You know that list, and that's not expired yet. The Statute of Limitations, I believe it's called.
Now, I don't know, they were like worried about what's wrong with the world and how they want to like do more charitable things and volunteer and this, that, and the other and help in this way and do this social good and this, that. And I'm like, look, you can't change that you feel this way because of, well, how you feel she can change, but you can't change that you didn't participate in all these things in the past. But today you're confronted with a challenge. Like, what can you do to participate today? What can you do to participate tomorrow? Get excited about that rather than feeling terrible about what you didn't do yesterday. That was my advice. I know it's not like profound, it's generic advice, but these things are good to remind ourselves of sometimes.
Yeah, I guess. And I try and work out how we lose sight of it. But, I'm going to take it on for tomorrow.
All right, Tony Five, our foreign correspondent in London, England. Tony, thank you.
Always a pleasure, my friend. Always a pleasure.
Coming up next, the moment you've been waiting for, how you can get your hands on a mushroom coffin, which shall turn your life after you've lived it into new life. That is fungal life.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
I'm Scott Hansen, host of NFL Red Zone. Lowe's knows Sundays hit different when you earn them. We've got you covered with outdoor power equipment from Cobalt and everything you need to weatherproof your deck with Trex decking. Plus, with lawn care from Scott's and, of course, Pit Boss grills and accessories, you can get a home field advantage all season long. So get to Lowe's, get it done, and earn your Sunday. Lowe's, official partner of the NFL.
The human algorithm, where emotional inputs create unexpected outputs. The last show with David Cooper.
When you go, I mean really go, like die, why not go green? Literally, one company is turning death into compost with a coffin made of mushrooms. It is eco-friendly, it is biodegradable, and it might be the only time you get to be truly one with nature. I am here with the founder of Loop Biotech, who creates this coffin. His name is Bob Hendrikx. To discuss, Bob, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
You got to tell me the story behind the Loop living coffin. Like, what inspired you to design a mushroom-based coffin? And I got to ask, how did the idea first germinate? Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah, it's obviously a weird question. Why would you invent a mushroom coffin? Well, it's actually perfectly logical. When I graduated, I wanted to create a new type of products that has a positive footprint. And I learned it's quite hard, so I did a lot of research on various organisms, basically released my inner David Attenborough, and learned how bees build their nests, how coral is grown, and how mushroom, like from an architectural point of view, I graduated on architecture, how those are formed. A little bit fast forward, I learned to grow materials from mushrooms, went a little bit deeper and asked myself the notorious question, what do mushrooms want? What kind of product does a mushroom want to be? Which is contradicting how humans normally think, because they think, what kind of product do I want? So I thought, let's flip the script, because then we can not be parasitic, but be like a symbiotic relationship. So I learned that mushrooms are basically nature's biggest recycler. They live in the soil, they transform dead organic matter into new plant foods. So I thought, wow, this is amazing. So we need to bring the mushroom back into the soil. What kind of products do we use as human species in the soil? And I was like, oh my God, a casket.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of what would happen to our bodies in the olden days before we started using coffins, just wooden boxes.
Exactly.
Walk me through exactly what it's made of and what happens to a body when it's inside the coffin.
Of course. So we grow mushroom-based caskets. We do this by mixing upcycled hemp fiber together with mushroom mycelium, which is like the root structure of the mushroom, in a mold. So the shape is already set, and we grow it in only 7 days in ideal growing conditions, which is basically relatively a little bit warmer temperature, but very high humidity. I mean, that's where mushrooms grow. And then in only 7 days, it grows into a full product, one-on-one, which at that moment is quite gelatine, which is similar to like a mushroom. If you walk to the forest, you see like a little mushroom. It's quite squishy. It's a little bit soft.
Yeah.
But if you take it home, it dries. It becomes like pretty hard. That's because it releases a certain protein when it's dried. So that process happens in our growing facility as well. The mushroom gets dormant, and then people can use it. It's super functional. You can use it as any type of normal casket, burial, cremation. It can carry up to 440 lbs. But the benefits, of course, are in the soil because it biodegrades in ideal conditions in only 45 days, where it will actually release a lot of energy and carbon resources, which will function as resources for the local ecosystem. So you're really giving a gift to nature. You're providing extra resources for nature to continue to grow.
And what happens to, organic material, a body, inside the coffin after that 40 days, 45 days, or even during it?
Yeah, so what will happen is that our product basically dissolves and creates healthier soil. So that means that your body will be faster exposed to the natural ecosystem and therefore will decompose faster. So it is, confirmed that it will probably take 2 to 3 years to decompose the body. The bones will stay. And this is, equally compared to being buried without a casket. If you compare this to products with a casket, which can be, of course, wood or metal, it can take up to 10, 20, 30 years for the body to decompose, basically because you're like putting something in the ground that wants to decay, but you're saying like, no, we're going to put a shell over it to prevent it from decaying, which I can understand from a cultural point of view, but from an environmental perspective, it doesn't make sense to me.
And so this is better for the planet because, I don't know, the natural process of decomposition happens. Do mushrooms sprout on the surface that would have somehow been tied to the body inside?
We have already helped over 2,500 families across Europe and also in North America. And several occasions we had families that said, hey, we saw a mushroom come out of the grave. It is almost never our mushroom species of the casket, because it's a non-dominant species, but you're creating more fertile soil, more soil health. So naturally, microorganisms and mushrooms will enter that space.
What does the market, people who might buy one of these things, funeral homes, what do they think of your product? Are they on board? Are they skeptical? Is it both?
No, we're very happy to receive a lot of positivity because it's quite easy to understand. Like, it's a casket, everybody understands a casket, and hey, this dissolves into nature and is good for nature. So we're very happy to have a lot of funeral partners, families who have used the product. I think the biggest benefit that we can offer is that with this product you can actually leave a positive footprint, which is really unique in the world. I mean, which product has a positive footprint? Like, if we're a company and we're growing more products, we grow as a business, it's going to be better for nature. And that's the whole concept of not only the product, but also the business, that if we benefit, nature should benefit.
This different view on decomposition rather than traditional wood casket, rather than a traditional wood casket, do you think it can change how people might view death and what happens to our body when we die?
That is actually funny because it was my first thought when I ever came up with this. I was, to be honest, a little bit scared because I thought, hey, this is a really good idea, but it's a funeral business. It's with dead people, not really sure. I was also a little bit younger at that age, just graduated, so a little insecure. But I thought, hey, what I'm going to do is going to build a prototype because I had a lot of fun in building and growing it. And if we can just bury one person with this product over the whole world, because I thought probably we'll catch some news, people will think of themselves not as waste that should be burned or buried or preserved, but as compost, and see themselves as a valuable resource that is part of the cycle of life. And that happened then after 6 months. And from that moment on, I've been running for 5 years straight to keep up with demand and growing and lots of things.
So they're in high demand. People want them. Are there places where you're not allowed to use them, or is there any legal restrictions around this kind of tech?
Basically not, because we designed it as a normal casket, but with the environmental positivity to it. So it's not changing any laws or breaking any laws. So we're completely legal and certified in almost entire parts of Europe and in Northern America. So of course, USA and Canada. We're now live for a couple of months.
Where can I find one? I got to update my will. My girlfriend was just bugging me about that. So where can I find one? I live in the U.S. The show airs in Canada as well.
Yeah, so we work with funeral partners. So with every funeral partner funeral entrepreneur director, I think is the right term.
Funeral director.
You can simply order them via them, or you can order straight from us. We have a web shop, which is also not quite common, but for us, transparency is super important. So you can see everything, any questions you have on there.
Well, I'm here with Bob Hendrikx, the founder of Loop Biotech, who makes the Loop Living Coffin, a mushroom coffin. If you're interested, you can look that up. Bob, thanks for telling me about this tech. I appreciate you coming on the show. It's really interesting.
Nice. Thank you so much. Had a lot of fun, too.
Did you know The Last Show is available as a podcast? There's even some bonus content that you won't hear on the radio on our podcast. Just head to www.lastshow.pizza. That's lastshow.pizza, not .com. There you can find out details about the podcast and how to subscribe. Coming up after the break, an analysis of tens of millions of obituaries reveals things about what we consider a life well lived, and spotted trends about what we say of our past loved ones that have curiously changed over time.
Want to be part of The Last Show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
Doug. Limu and I always tell you to customize your car insurance and save hundreds with Liberty Mutual. But now, we want you to feel it. Cue the emu music, Limu.
Save yourself money today. Increase your wealth. Customize and save, we say.
That may have been too much feeling.
Only pay for what you need at libertymutual.com.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
Savings vary. Underwritten by Liberty Mutual Insurance Company and affiliates. Excludes Massachusetts.
Exploring both interstellar and interpersonal space-time continuums. The Last Show with David Cooper.
What do 38 million obituaries reveal about what we truly value in a person's life? Well, a new study has found that our final words about a person tell a big story, one about tradition, kindness, and even shifting values in times of crisis. I'm here with someone who worked on that study. He is a professor in the Department of Communication at Michigan State University. His name is Dr. David Markowitz. Dave, welcome in.
Thanks so much for having me, David. I appreciate it.
Now, 38 million obituaries. I imagine you sat down and read them all and didn't use computers or AI to help you one bit.
Every single one, it took a lot of time. No, I'm just kidding. We had computers do a lot of the heavy lifting here. And I'm a natural language processing scholar, so I have a lot of computers count words for me. And I try to understand what people are thinking and feeling and experiencing psychologically by understanding those words. And that's what we are undertaking here in the obituary study.
Can analyzing such a huge volume of obituaries miss things that interviewing individual people or reading individual obituaries tell us?
It's possible. Well, let me take a step back here. Obituaries, they're summaries of one's life and one's legacy. So they're produced by people who presumably knew us best, and we wanted to have our lives recapped by them. So while computers may not be able to summarize the entirety of one's life, the computer can analyze what people ascribe to be the most important summaries about one's life, which are these obituaries. So yes, of course, an obituary is not the final word on someone, but it's a really important word on who someone was for the entirety of their life.
And I think we can find trends that tell us what it means to live a, good life and what our family thinks is a good life.
That's exactly right. And that's what we really wanted to do in this study. One of the big driving questions is, what does it mean to live a good life? And what do people think about what it means to live a good life? And what we found are several things. But one of the big ones is the things that people value in everyday life. Two things being tradition and benevolence. Tradition, they really focus on social norms. They focus on religious faith. Over about 80% of the obituaries had some mention of tradition in them, and about 75% of the obituaries also contain at least one mention of caring for others, or this idea of benevolence. We really care about the close connections that we hold, and other people really suggest that that's an important remembrance in terms of reflecting on one's legacy.
And we shouldn't be surprised to find that things like professional power, money, the person worked really hard and had no time for their friends and family, these are not things that you found as values.
They were there, but not as prevalent as the other two. But what's actually really important is that depending on the identity of the deceased, the gender, for example, or age, you actually can see differences in how these personal values were actually revealed. So, for example, when people were remembering the legacies of men, they actually remembered more about their achievements, their rank, what they accomplished, things like their profession, more for men than for women. And a lot of this might stem from stereotypes that people hold in everyday life about focusing more on the competence of men compared to focusing more on the warmth and collegiality of women.
Interesting. Now, what about changes in society or like big moments in society? I don't know. I'm thinking like 9/11 or the 2008 crash or even COVID-19. Do crises or major shifts in society like change the way we remember people?
They do. They modify the way that people are remembered. These are major societal disruptions. So I'll talk about two maybe at length. One that's sort of near and dear to me as a New Yorker, and the other that we all lived through, which is the COVID-19 pandemic. So if we start with 9/11, we think about the terrorist attacks, we can actually trace the various values that people were focusing more or less on after that big social and societal disruption. So one of the things that we can look at is the location of the deceased and how that is reflective of different values that people emphasize over time. So we find that people who were actually in New York or in the New York area at the time of 9/11 and after, people were focused way less on security, but more focused on caring for other people. So New Yorkers, we did not feel that sense of security and safety after the 9/11 attacks. And we were really trying to care more for our fellow New Yorkers and of caring for other people in society. That was more reflective of New Yorkers compared to non-New Yorkers. Then if we also want to look at the COVID-19 pandemic, a really, really stark shift happened right around 2019 all the way, and it hasn't returned to baseline since, which is a really big decrease in benevolence, a decrease in caring for others, yet we were staying home and we were trying to really care about the health and safety of other people, and we were taking many preventative measures to make sure that the virus wasn't spreading. It's a bit of a paradox.
Yeah.
But,
well, I was saying some of us were doing those things.
Exactly right. Some of us, for sure.
Why do you think that language disappeared at that time, or do you not know, or you don't want to speculate?
Yeah, so it can speculate a little bit, right? So again, this is one of our more surprising findings, but during a time when communities were really making big, extraordinary sacrifices, obituaries were less likely to emphasize caring for others. And I think what was happening is that during this time of big personal distress, pro-social behavior, meaning caring for other people, doing things for others, became much more difficult to recognize publicly, even when it was widespread. So our internal dialogue of what was going on was different than our external dialogue of what we were able to express. Of course, we were trying to care for others. Of course, we were really concerned about the health and well-being of other people, but we had a difficult time doing that and expressing it in obituaries.
We spoke a little bit about using computers to read these obituaries, but I am curious about the method a little bit more. How do you even teach a computer to read for, these human values in writing that's often, poetic or covered in coded language and stuff like that?
Sure. So we have dictionaries of words that contain these personal values. So there's a set of dictionaries called the Shwartz Personal Values Dictionaries for language patterns. The Shwartz Personal Values theory is a social and psychological theory that suggests these 10 basic human values that are cross-cultural, that are across various continents and countries around the world. We value these things as guiding life principles. For example, caring for others, tradition, focusing on achievement, things like that. And what we're trying to do is basically figure out how words can approximate those things. And we have computers identify the degree to which a text, for example, an obituary, contains those words that are reflective of those personal values.
You talked about COVID-19, you talked about 9/11. What do you think the obituaries of today, we're talking like October 2025, tell us about society in this moment right now?
Wow, I wish I could have that looking glass. I'm not entirely sure. One thing that could be in there, right, is this idea of societal disruptions changing how people are thinking and feeling about the world. There are a range of societal and global disruptions that are going on right now. And you can imagine that depending on one's own positionality, who they are, what they care about, the various communities that they belong to, those societal disruptions actually changing how people are going to reflect on the lives of those who were near to them and unfortunately they lost.
Now, taking a step back based on your findings, if I wanted an obituary written about me to reflect a life truly well lived, based on your findings, what would be in it?
Probably about the people that you cared about and the ways that people cared about you, right? These personal connections that we have. It seems trite to even talk about. Of course, personal connections matter. But when we think about all of the things that matter in a person's life, it's who you spent your time with, not always just how you spent your time.
If you had to write your own obituary headline today, using the values from your study, what would you put in there?
So I've addressed this question a few different ways, and the one that really resonates with me is to think about the person that I miss the most, which is my grandma, who passed away years ago. And there was a phrase, I believe, that's actually on her tombstone that says, "She tried." And the thing that I love about that is that there's this almost like admission of we're never going to get it right sometimes in life, but as long as we try and put our best effort out there and we try to be a good person in the world, hopefully that means that it's enough. I think it really is enough.
Thanks for sharing that. I really appreciate you coming on the show and sharing your study as well, Dave. Thanks again.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Dr. David Markowitz is a professor in the Department of Communication at Michigan State University. After the break, how persuasive is an AI chat model? I mean, all things equal, you're talking to a person or you're talking to a chatbot. Which is better at persuading you to do things, good or bad?
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
At Sierra, discover great deals on top brand workout gear, like high-quality walking shoes, which might lead to another discovery.
40,000 steps, baby. Who's on top now, Karen?
You've taken the office step challenge a step too far. Don't worry, though. Sierra also has yoga gear. It might be a good place to find your zen. Discover top brands at unexpectedly low prices. Sierra, let's get moving.
The last show with David Cooper. Procrastinate your life away with us.
AI, chatbots, tools like ChatGPT are doing a lot more than answering naive questions right now. They can change some people's minds. New research shows that chatbots can be more persuasive than humans, which means they can manipulate and mess with your mental health. How do we protect ourselves from technology that knows exactly what to say to us? That is what we'll discuss here with Dr. Vered Shwartz, who's a professor of computer science at the University of British Columbia. Vered, welcome to the program.
Hi, David. Thanks for having me.
Why can we say that AI is more persuasive than human beings in the first place? Are there known examples of this where AI can do a better job convincing someone than a person?
So we actually studied that in a controlled setting to answer this question. We were curious about this question because of two ways in which people interact with large language models, LLMs, like ChatGPT. One is when they use the tool on their own to get advice about their everyday life. And the other one is more like when other people are using these tools behind the scenes to generate content at scale to persuade large numbers of people, like for example in like social media bots. And so we really wanted to quantify to what extent it's persuasive. Is it more persuasive than people? So we designed a study to study that.
Were you expecting to find that it was less persuasive, but still persuasive? Like, were you surprised to find that it does a great job at this stuff?
I wasn't overly surprised, but we did look at the details of like in which ways in what it was persuasive, and that was pretty interesting for us. So I can tell a little bit with the study.
Please do. Yeah, please do.
So we recruited people, and when we asked them to role play a certain persona with a dilemma, we specifically focused on lifestyle decisions, like whether or not to become vegan, or whether or not to go to grad school or buy an electric vehicle. And then half of the conversations were with another human that was trying to persuade them to make a particular decision, and then the other half was with an LLM, specifically GPT-4. That was doing the same, and they didn't know who they were talking to in advance. And so to quantify the persuasion, we asked them before and after the conversation how likely they think this person is to adopt this like life decision. And then we used the gap to measure like how persuasive the conversation was. And so we also asked them about how pleasant the conversation was, like regardless of whether or not they were persuaded. And so the first finding was that the LLM was more persuasive than people across all topics, and it was also perceived as more empathetic, which that was the more surprising bit. And when we actually looked at the conversations, we analyzed them, and we learned that this was happening due to several reasons. So the first one was that the LLM has access to vast knowledge, right? It was like trained on the entire web. It knows everything about everything. And so it was very easy for the model to come up with like arguments in favor of each one of these very like well-discussed topics. And the other thing that is related to that is that it takes the LLM like almost no time and certainly no like effort to generate long responses. And so these two together meant that it was able to generate many arguments in favor of the decision. But not only the arguments, it was also generating logistical support. So for example, if somebody was saying, I want to become vegan, but I don't know, iron deficient, I'm afraid that it's going to get worse, then it was able to actually suggest some like other modifications or other things that this person can do, like eat like meat substitutes or particular brands of them. That maybe didn't come as easily for people. They could Google, but it just takes them longer to come across this information.
I don't know what's worse, convincing people to be vegans or convincing them to go to grad school, but that's a conversation for another day.
We actually tried to deliberately choose topics that were like apolitical and not too controversial, but I guess there's no topic that is completely...
Veganism is apolitical? All right, that's a conversation for another day. I want to drill into what you said about, longer responses, being more verbose, perhaps using bigger words.
Yeah.
Is that really all it takes to be more persuasive? I just have to write you a longer paragraph?
I studied our study was from the computer science perspective, so I can't tell you much about like people's nature, so I don't know if that's what it takes from the perspective of like people to get persuaded. But in our study, these two factors of like longer and more informed responses, along with you mentioned like like big words, so that the style of the response was also a factor that we found in our study. That the language model was using like long words, like more jargony words. Our interpretation was that it just makes the model seem more authoritative because like we are, like as humans, we have like cognitive biases that if someone speaks in a very like confident way, uses like very authoritative words, we tend to believe that they know what they're talking about. In the case of the models, they do have like access to vast knowledge, but we also know that models can hallucinate. So they could, with the same confidence, like say something wrong, but like using authoritative language.
Seeing what you've seen in this study, are we at a place where AI can outpersuade humans? And if so, are we entering a world where these tools will be used for marketing, politics, even to assist me chatting on a dating app or something like that?
Oh, definitely. I think it's already happening. I think people, like even without having, the results of this study, were intuitively seeing that these models are working in terms of like getting people to like, persuading people to do things. I think like one of my concerns is about just people using it knowingly, but maybe overly trusting these models, because I think a lot of people, when they interact with these models, they tend to assume that it's like, a model that knows everything. And it's another cognitive bias that an answer coming from the computer seems to be like knowledgeable and truthful and neutral. And especially for the people that don't know about language models, hallucination problem, like making up facts, why would you think that it's not telling you the truth? Like, we're so used to computers, just calculating an answer and giving us like a truthful answer.
Until I used a ChatGPT to ask something in an area that I had knowledge in and saw that it hallucinated and then verified that it hallucinated by looking at a primary source, I think I trusted it more. So until people get that moment where they see it hallucinate in an area that they're knowledgeable about, why wouldn't you trust it? It uses big words and it gives you pretty good answers.
Definitely. That's something that I usually tell people is if you have your bio online, if you ask ChatGPT to write something about you, I think now if it accesses your website, it might be a little bit more faithful. But at least a few months ago when I did the same exercise, it kind of got who I am, right in the area of what I do. But it also made up a lot of small errors, and I can easily identify it because I know myself.
Zooming into what you said about them being more pleasant, these chatbots, users who interacted with them finding them more pleasant, it's not all doom and gloom. We could see a day where customer service chatbots actually make us feel better about our customer service interactions. There are positive uses for the fact that we find them more persuasive and more trustworthy.
Yeah, definitely. I think that, for example, one of the reasons some people use ChatGPT as a therapist is because they just feel seen or heard. And this is actually not a new thing. So in the 1960s, there was a really primitive, really advanced for that time, and really primitive compared to ChatGPT chatbot. It was supposed to be a therapist called Eliza. And it was just answering these templated answers and just repeating what you said and saying, oh, how do you feel about that? And even though people knew they were talking to a pretty primitive chatbot, they still reported feeling better. So sometimes people just need to be heard. But there are risks as well. So
Sure.
Even going back to something like our life decisions, people daily use ChatGPT to ask these questions. There was a recent story about a person that was asking ChatGPT for substitutes for table salt. And it suggested eating, I think it was sodium bromide or something
Yeah,
like that.
we covered it on the show, and they got poisoned and got psychosis, and they ended up in the hospital.
Yeah, exactly. So overly trusting these models could be dangerous. And even before you go into some people can use it to persuade others.
All right. Well, thanks for sharing your research. You can check out Dr. Vered Shwartz's book, Lost in Automatic Translation. That's available wherever books are sold. She's a professor of computer science at the University of British Columbia. Vered, thank you for talking to me. I appreciate your time.
Thank you so much.
Let me ask you something. Grandfather changes his will to only leave everything to grandson. Is it ethical? Is it allowed? And should grandson tell everyone who is cut out of the will? That in a minute.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
This episode is brought to you by Jack Daniels. Jack Daniels and music are made for each other. They share a rhythm in the craft of making something timeless, while being a part of legendary nights. From backyard jams to sold-out arenas, there's a song in every toast. Please drink responsibly. Responsibility.org. Jack Daniels and Old No. 7 are registered trademarks. Tennessee whiskey, 40% alcohol by volume. Jack Daniel Distillery, Lynchburg, Tennessee.
Smart, sharp, and slightly unhinged. Late night's fresh perspective. The last show with David Cooper.
We are here to talk fun money stories here with Dr. Eric Kam, who is an economics professor at Toronto Metropolitan University. Eric, welcome in.
Long-time listener, first-time caller, David. Honored to be here.
Whenever my brother calls my radio show, he says, long-time caller, first-time listener, because he never listens. Okay, let's do this one story. A guy posted online. It's creating a bit of a stir. He's saying that his grandfather, who's quite wealthy, is leaving him everything and cutting his dad out. And what should he do? And is he a jerk for not telling his dad? His dad's only getting 50 G's, which I think to some people would be a lot of money. But for this estate, it's a token amount. What would you advise a client? Like if this grandkid was your, you were out advising people financially. I know you're an economics professor, but assuming you were an advisor, what would you tell this kid?
I would say that whoever, in this case, his grandparent, has desires to leave them the money and not their parent. And I would say, first of all, get yourself a decent lawyer because you need someone in your corner. Second of all, he's under no obligation to share this money. And I don't usually talk about my family on your show, but I think I have a couple stories for you that you might be interested. And it's not a secret, my father-in-law committed suicide when he was 44 years old.
I'm sorry to hear that.
And thank you, my wife's grandfather left their entire estate to their granddaughters. So badly was that taken that my wife's mother sued my wife and I in 2001 because she didn't feel that she got her fair share. Well, she found out the hard way that she can feel whatever she wants, but the law says that that money was left to my wife and her sister. And I told my wife straight out, you can leave your mother whatever you want, but you're under no obligation. And I don't care if you give this to the Sisters of the Poor, but you do not have to give your mother a penny of this money, David. This is why there's wills, this is why there's estates, and this is why there's laws. People leave money to whom they want. And if it doesn't go to a specific person, they may be insulted, they may be hurt, but such is life.
I mean, there's occasionally a spot for recourse, like when the guy leaves it all to the pet and not the wife, and the pet's in the wife's custody. There are extreme cases where courts get involved and say no, but generally they respect the wishes of the past.
Well, story part 2 that I think you're going to like, and I promise not to cry. I think I've confided in you that I was married and divorced in my 20s.
L'chaim.
Thank you. And because of that, I was not the apple of my grandfather's eye. And it's unfortunate because I had a grandfather until I was 42 years old, but we really didn't have much of a relationship after my marriage ended, even though I got remarried and had a family. My grandfather wouldn't tell anybody about his estate. He kept it very close to the vest. We were stunned because he wasn't a very generous person to find out that when he passed away, he left his entire estate, both real estate, money estate, put it all in a pot, and he divided it equally among his 10 grandchildren. Problem is, David, he had 11. And I got what my grandfather thought of me. Nothing. And you know what? My cousins came to me, my brother came to me and said, don't worry, we'll make this right. And I said, not a chance. My grandfather was of sound mind and body. So I agree with you that sometimes you've got to intervene when there's just absolute abjunct stupidity. But generally, if people are of sound mind and body, it's hard. It's hard when a judge or, a group of lawyers has to say to you, I know you're hurt. I know this kind of stings, but this is the wishes of the person. And you know what? God forbid, David, I hope you live to be 120, but one day you'll leave your estate to somebody. And I don't think it's anyone's business other than you, your partner, and your, any children you have where that money goes.
Philosophically, I know there are certain people with life circumstances that they can't control and they're impoverished or indebted and it's not their fault and whatever, they're waiting around. But in general, if you have a regular life where you're not encumbered in debt, and maybe even if you are, philosophically, you shouldn't live your life waiting around for dead people's money. You shouldn't let that external thing out of your control completely govern how you live your life. You're just waiting around, and then finally the day comes and maybe it doesn't pan out the way you wanted it. Then what? Don't structure your life that way. Don't look at people that way. I wouldn't want to look at my grandparents that way. I wouldn't want to look at my parents that way. So whenever people are like, oh, you might inherit this, and they're talking about it for themselves, I'm like, look, it's dead people's money. Live your life. Philosophically, that's the way I look at it.
Okay, so you're very right. And we always tell my parents, 81 years old, God bless them, just live your life. If you go through your wealth and you leave us zero, but you've had a good life and you did all the things you wanted to do, my brother and I are happy. So while I agree with you, 99% I agree with you. I think that you can't, and it's actually pathetic if you base your life on what you may inherit one day from somebody. That's a really sad way to live. But let me give you the 1%. As an economist, you know that intergenerational wealth transfers are a real thing. And as much as I don't like the idea of sitting there with your, hands out waiting for it to fall, it is something that you do have to think about. And so for some people, that is a great deal of wealth. And for some people, it's not very much at all. And some people, it's in the middle. But it is something that, we have overlapping generations. And when you do think about your financial planning for the rest of your life, there's the negative aspect that you brought up, and I agree with you, but you do get to look at the future and say, well, it is true that one day this will fall to me, even if I don't know the exact figure. I wouldn't plan my life around it, and I wouldn't say, well, I can do a lot of expensive things today because this is coming someday, because sometimes...
That's what I'm talking about. Buy your house, live your life, have your job, live within your means, and don't stick around waiting for this thing or rack up, 50 G's of credit card debt hoping it'll get paid off when someone dies.
There is zero good reason to wrap up $50,000 in credit card debt, because as we've talked about, when you're talking about debt...
I disagree. What if you're going to flee the country because you're a criminal, rack up the debt, and then flee to South America? That's the only time when it's a good idea.
Well, David, call me later and I can help you out. But you're right. Okay, so there's good debt and bad debt, but we know that credit card debt is horrific debt. And
yes.
You, by the way, and I rarely say this word on your show or any show, if you're sitting there and you're going to rack yourself with an unbelievable amount of debt because someday you might inherit money, you are the intellectually homeless. You deserve whatever happens to you. You shouldn't do that. But it is true that wealth does transfer down the generations. But the problem is it's so uncertain how much you're going to get. And as life gets more expensive for you, it also gets more expensive for the people that one day will transfer that wealth. So you can't count on, even if it looks like a round number, $100,000 today, God knows what it's going to be in 10, 15, 20 years.
Like $100,000 at the turn of the last century was like 10 million, Now, if you've 100 G's, that ain't 10 million. There is one exception here that we're not saying, maybe the spouse, the spouse who has a shared life and shared finances, maybe that person should, consider if you pass, they would be set up. They shouldn't expect to have their house foreclosed on them.
Well, that's right. And I don't know about you and my wife and I have very simple wills. Whoever dies last wins, because everything transfers to them, and then the children will go from there. And so now going back to the story, my wife's mother thought a little bit like you. She said, just because her spouse passed away, why do I lose my position in this ladder? She kind of felt like I'm still the daughter-in-law, and that was true. Problem is, the law doesn't provide for in-laws. The law provides for the bloodline. And so that's why that argument didn't work for her. Nobody should leave their spouse homeless or penniless. That's frankly just cruel. And then I think what you decide to do with your children and grandchildren is up to you. But you're right. It's as they say today, as my students say, it's a bad take if you're sitting there with your hands out waiting for money to fall from the sky.
Well, I described what we were about to do as fun money, but it's also been kind of dark money. It's been informative money. It's been perhaps at times argumentative money, and I wouldn't have done it with anyone else. Eric, thank you for joining me on the program.
Always a pleasure. Stay healthy, David.
Dr. Eric Kam is an economics professor at Toronto Metropolitan University. Before the break, let me tell you that we would like to take your calls. So if you hear something you've got an opinion on or want to take part in the conversation, call us. The number 1-888-505-6644. Even if the show isn't live when you think of us, leave a voicemail. We'll call you back or play it on the show. Coming up next, when a disaster strikes, like an earthquake destroying a city, there's a great sense of loss, but what if we can rebuild those cities in virtual reality and share them with the people grieving? Well, we can, and the results are uplifting. Details in a minute.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
At Blinds.com, it's not just about window treatments. It's about you, your style, your space, your way. Whether you DIY or want the pros to handle it all, you'll have the confidence of knowing it's done right. From free expert design help to our 100% satisfaction guarantee, everything we do is made to fit your life and your windows. Because at Blinds.com, the only thing we treat better than windows is you. Visit Blinds.com now for up to 50% off primetime deals and free professional installation. Rules and restrictions apply.
Prepare to have your mind blown as we delve into the complexities of relationships, explore the cutting edge of science, and celebrate the bizarre and beautiful absurdity of the world around us. This is The Last Show with David Cooper.
When a disaster wipes a town off the map, can virtual reality help people reconnect with what was lost? Well, tonight we'll explore how immersive digital worlds can help communities grieve, remember, and even rebuild their sense of belonging from the comfort of people's computers. I'm here with Dr. Paola Di Franco, who is an associate professor in heritage and digital humanities at the University of Essex, who recently studied this. Paola, welcome to the show.
Thank you for inviting me.
So what can online spaces look like that help memorialize a place that had disaster? I've never been on an online game or virtual reality thing that looks like this. So what are they?
So what technologies can do today through drones, especially drone data, is to start from a picture of the actual landscape. So a landscape that has been destroyed by disasters. And then by looking at videos and photographs through specific 3D software, rebuild what was lost and enable people to revisit these places online, just wearing headsets, which is what especially young people are used to when they want to try some new gaming. But it's a bit different because this work has a very strong social element incorporated into it.
I've seen landscapes, city landscapes built in video games, but I've never thought about it from this angle of community healing after disasters. What made you think to kind of combine these two things?
This is a personal biography. So I come from an area that is often hit by earthquakes in Italy. And the last one happened in 2016. So I was already living and working at the University of Essex. And I thought, how can I help these people, my people, to reconnect with what was lost? Because it was quite painful to see the rubbles. And because I study the effects of 3D technologies in museums and for the reconstruction of heritage sites, I thought, maybe it's time to really trial these technologies to see if they have a social impact. So I was interested in reconnecting these people with their lost place and see what emotions this could lead to. I mean, if it was sadness or maybe actually a sense of lightness just to be able to go back, at least virtually. And that was the reason behind the study.
Well, I'm sorry your community lived through that, but I mean, it's a really interesting use of VR tech to help heal. It's really cool that you decided to do this and it's coming from a personal place. You describe these VR reconstructions as cemeteries of place. Can you unpack that idea a little bit?
Yes, so it's certainly not the only role of these technologies, but imagine that, you lost the place and, and then very recently, so many people, when they were revisiting this virtual reconstruction of the lost place, thought, how powerful is this? Sometimes if we think about losing people, we can visit them, we can visit their tombs, we can go to a cemetery, bring flowers and, feel the connection. But what happens when the place is lost? How can we reconnect with these places in a way that is similar to the connection you have with your beloved, your loved ones through a tomb, through a cemetery? And so they thought, it's visiting these VR places is like visiting a cemetery where we can bring flowers and think about what we've lost.
And how do people who have visited places like this respond to it? It seems like it must be very healing, very transformative. What have people said when they've been able to visit a place that is gone in VR?
Yeah, so we had some people asking whether they could stay. But not as a form of escapism. I want to make it very clear. More because they were really feeling light again. It was, just reconnecting to the idea of, the chatter outside in public square, just going back to the little places or the special places that they loved, and maybe have an ice cream virtually and sit down on a bench and just reconnect virtually with those emotions and those
really habits as well, just a very normal life that was happening in those towns.
Is there any one particular story that you were struck by of someone using a technology like this?
Yeah, there was this woman who... so first of all, I want to explain one thing, that sometimes you imagine that the virtual experience is it's a lonely experience where you wear the headset and then you lose yourself in this imaginative virtual world. Instead, these experiences are very social because there is someone who's wearing the headsets and then family members, friends are all around and they revisit together the lost place through, the headsets and the experience of the one wearing it. So it's social. And so one experience was very touching, where there was this mom who brought her 2 children who barely remembered, their house and the town because they were too little when the earthquake happened in 2016. And she showed them around. She showed them the house where they were living, the bedroom, the window of the bedroom. She explained what they were doing, like they shared memories. They tried to remember together. And then at some point she said, "This is beautiful. I just want to stay here. There is only one thing that is missing, which is the smell of the town, the smell of Amatrice." And so we said, "What is this smell? Can you explain it to us? Maybe, we can start thinking about how to add this element." And she said, I cannot explain it, but I can tell you that each street had a specific smell, which was unique to the town. And that's what I miss. But apart from that, the sounds, the idea, the immersion, the idea of going back is accurate. And so that was, I think, the most touching experience for me as a researcher. Yeah.
As uplifting as it sounds, I imagine for some people a visit like this could trigger traumas. So how can we ensure that we're helping people rather than harming them as they process their grief?
Yeah, thank you so much for this question. This is a very important question for us. So first of all, we use a trauma-informed design. So that means that we are really caring for the emotions that, this VR experience is triggering. So just to give you an idea, at the beginning, when we started the study, because this goes through iterations, we co-create with these people, right? So it's a lab activity. And so we brought the drone data of the rubbles of the destroyed place, and we asked people to experience this data, to experience these ruins. And we also added an element of time. So they could experience it when it was, the sun was shining, or in the evening when it was dark. So there was this woman who was trying to reorient herself in the space, destroyed space, and the dark came and she started to feel frightened. And so she said, I don't want to do this experience anymore. I want to stop. And then we said, of course, you stop, the experience ends here. And then she explained to us, she said, I felt frightened because this isn't my place anymore. I cannot really reorient myself through the rubbles. And this isn't my place because, when the place is destroyed, it can look like any other place. So I cannot recognize it anymore. And so, together with them, we started to think about how to, little by little, remove the rubble and rebuild.
Well, I'm certain there's someone listening to this who has some place that's lost, maybe due to disaster, but maybe due to something like construction. And I imagine a not too distant future where people could go into spaces like this, VR spaces, and re-experience them. Thank you for sharing some of your research and some of these stories with me, Paola. I appreciate you being on the show.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Dr. Paola Di Franco is an associate professor in heritage and digital humanities at the University of Essex. Coming up next, it might not surprise you to find that a new study shows social media disconnects you from everybody, makes you feel lonelier, not connected, like it's supposed to do, right?
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
In the 70s, 4 young women were found dead. For nearly 50 years, their cases went cold. I'm Nancy Hixt, a senior crime reporter for Global News. In the season finale of Crime Beat, I share how investigators uncovered shocking evidence of a serial killer and hear exclusive interviews with the killer's family. Listen to the full season of Crime Beat early and ad-free on Amazon Music by asking Alexa to play the podcast Crime Beat.
When the day is done, we're just getting started. The Last Show with David Cooper.
A new study finds that social media, despite trying to connect you with everyone you know, actually makes us feel lonelier, not more connected. From TikTok to Facebook, adults who use these platforms often report feeling more isolated than, well, connected. I'm here with someone who worked on that study. She is a public health professor at Oregon State University. Her name is Dr. Jessica Gorman. Jessica, welcome in.
Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
How do you actually measure loneliness with people? Is it self-reported, or is there some sort of questionnaire where you can secretly find out whether people are lonely?
Yeah, for this study, we did use an established questionnaire of perceived social isolation is actually what it's capturing. So it is important to know, like, there's a difference here because this is your perceptions of feeling lonely. We're not looking at sort of the actual number of connections that people have. We're just asking them, how they feel. So that's how we do it.
I remember when Facebook launched, 20 years ago with the promise of connecting you with everyone you know. And then somewhere along the lines, these platforms changed into short form videos and news stories and not just things that your friends are sharing. Tell me about how people engage with these things earnestly to feel connected, but then they end up not feeling that way at all.
Well, I'll say this particular study, we didn't ask about sort of how or why or the details of what people were doing while they were using social media. We only asked them how many times they checked it and how often they were there for. And those were the things that were definitely linked to social isolation. So I think there's a lot of more opportunity here to find out the answers to these sorts of questions. Which as a researcher, this is where my mind goes next. Like, what's going on here and what are the experiences that people are having and why is this, not helping them? Because there was this promise of social connection, right? And it's easy but it doesn't appear that it's actually helping people feel really truly connected to others. And one thing that we do know, right, is that we look at social media and we see all the highlights of people's lives potentially, right? This is one way that people use it. They could see, what their friends are doing, they're on vacation and all of this beautiful stuff. And, if they're a person that's feeling lonely and seeing this, you could see how that would make you feel, right? Like not the best, like you're not measuring up, you're not living this, type of exciting life that you're seeing online. So that could play a role there as well. But there's so many different social media platforms and so many different ways that people use social media. So I think that just deserves a lot more attention. I don't think there's one simple answer here.
Well, let's look at that time spent and frequency of use. And you're finding that it correlates to loneliness, which ends up hurting us more, like constantly checking in for short periods of time frequently, or one very long scrolling session, or it really doesn't matter. Both are bad.
Yeah, I don't think we could say one is necessarily worse than the other based on this. Frequency might be a little bit more strongly connected in this study, but I don't think we can say, there's definitely, it's worse to check more often, or definitely it's worse to pee on there for a longer time. And I think it's very possible that this connects to how people are using social media and what they're doing there, right? If they're just kind of mindlessly scrolling through things and, they keep checking back versus if they're going on to do something very intentional, connecting for, work reasons or just, very specific things, that's going to be very different than just going online and scrolling through a bunch of pictures, for example. So that, I would say the jury is still out on that. But it does seem like it's frequent. The important thing here, I think, is that both frequency and the amount of time you spend both mattered.
Is there a chicken and egg problem here? Like social media use makes us lonely, or do lonely people use it more? And how do you untangle that?
Yes. Good question. So this is a cross-sectional study. So it's like a snapshot in time of a relationship between two things. So we can't come to any firm conclusion about which causes the other. So it kind of is a chicken and an egg problem, like you said. But, this is a growing body of research, and it is consistent with that. It does seem to be that, this heavy social media use really is linked with loneliness and social isolation. And we could say that if someone's feeling lonely and they go to use, to connect with people on social media, it's not the magic bullet that's going to help them. So, right, that's not the solution. It's probably not making things better, and it might even be making things worse. But from this study, we can't say, which comes first. I would say in the context of the broader research, that's, more in support of it is the social media use, really that is affecting these feelings of loneliness.
A 2023 advisory from the U.S. Surgeon General estimated the health impact of loneliness to be the equivalent of 15 cigarettes a day, which sounds absolutely wild to me. What is the mechanism here? Is it like stress, inflammation, isolation? Is it psychological? Like, what is the impact of people being lonely so often?
Yeah. I don't know what the mechanism is, quite honestly. I think it is a really important thing to bring to people's attention, though, that this is such a significant public health issue in this country, with the Surgeon General coming out and even speaking about it. As many as half of Americans are feeling lonely, and this does have a negative impact. There's numerous studies looking at a variety of sort of physical and mental health and, life expectancy, quality of life impacts from social isolation, which just reminds us that this is a really important thing to pay attention to and to try to figure out how to address, right? And social media might be one aspect of that, but I'm sure, right, there's a lot more going on. We saw, for example, with the pandemic, right, we saw an increase in people feeling lonely and isolated, and that seems to have, stuck around with us at, sort of socially since that period of time. So I think we're still trying to figure out, like, how do we address that? And I would just say, social media is probably not the answer. We need to think beyond that, right? To actual in-person connections. Or maybe if we are using social media, thinking about, how we do that in ways where we really are feeling connected to others. Maybe it's smaller groups. Maybe it's like a more intentional use of social media. Those are just some things to be thinking about. And again, like, I don't have the answers on this yet, but important issues to have in our minds.
Based on asking people how much time they spend on this stuff and how lonely they feel, is there a potential healthy dose of it? Like I said, these platforms launched promising to make us less lonely. Is there a healthy dose of social media?
I have never thought about that. I think it's possible. I mean, this particular study didn't say anything about that. I think this does come back to not just maybe the dose, but why we're using social media and how we're using social media. And if we are ending up feeling connected to other people, when we're using social media, right, we would know that. So for my own self, I'm thinking about, like, how do I feel, right, when I'm interacting with this social media platform, for example. So that could be an observation, that we could just sort of make on our own to try to navigate that in our own personal lives.
And everything in moderation, I suppose.
Right. It's not to say that all social media is bad. And social media is clearly not going anywhere, right? And so it's everywhere. And some of us can't avoid it. We have to interact with social media in our lives. So, yeah.
Well, Dr. Jessica Gorman is a public health professor at Oregon State University. Jessica, thanks for talking to me about this study and discussing loneliness and social media with us.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It was great.
All right, that's a wrap on our Tuesday night show. Thank you so much for tuning in. Do not forget, The Last Show is available as a podcast, which you should definitely check out. Head to www.lastshow.pizza. That's .pizza, not .com for details, or search David Cooper Last Show on your favorite podcast app. Anyway, I'm David Cooper, and whatever. Good night.